why your greatest strength is actually killing you, and what comes next, I want to talk to you today about something that's going to make some of you uncomfortable. And that's exactly why we need to talk about it. I recently sat down with Jamilah Pitts, a food safety lab specialist at the milk bank, a woman whose life's work has quietly disrupted everything we've been taught about success, strength, and survival. For nearly 11 years, Jamila has been on the front lines of child welfare, working in foster care, adoption, and now ensuring that the most vulnerable infants in medical settings receive safe, life sustaining nutrition. Her impact, immeasurable. Her approach, revolutionary. Because Jamila has discovered something that most high achieving women, especially Black women, are terrified to admit. She told me that embracing imperfection, even celebrating what she calls bad singing, can be a radical act of self acceptance and joy. Now, I need you to sit with that for a moment because in a world that has taught us, especially those of us who are Black women, that we must be twice as good to get half as much, that we must always be polished, always be perfect, always be exceptional, just to be seen as equal. Jamila is saying something that sounds almost dangerous. She's saying that sometimes prioritizing fun and authenticity over perfection is how we reclaim our creative voice, our well being, and our lives. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but wait, isn't excellence important? Shouldn't we strive to be our best? Don't we need to maintain standards? Yes, of course. But here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud: the relentless pursuit of perfection, the constant pressure to validate ourselves through flawless performance, the belief that our worth is tied to our productivity. It's not making us better. It's making us sick. It's robbing us of joy. It's stealing our authenticity. It's suffocating the very softness and rest that our souls are crying out for. Let me paint you a picture. Think about the women you know, the high achieving Black women who have spent decades, not years, decades in survival mode. They've led teams, raised families, held down households, carried entire communities on their backs. They've worn the superwoman cape so long it's fused to their skin, they can't remember the last time they said no without guilt. They can't remember the last time they rested without justification. They can't remember the last time they chose themselves without apology. And now they're exhausted. They're burned out. They're standing at the edge of their lives, wondering if this is all there is, wondering if there's more than this endless grind, wondering if they'll ever feel whole again. Jamila's journey offers us a different path, and it started in the most humble places: church nurseries, orphanages, places where perfection wasn't the currency, love was. She moved into foster care and adoption, navigating systems so complex, so broken, so desperately in need of people who could bring not just technical skill, but deep empathy and resilience. She had to learn how to hold space for children who had been failed by every system designed to protect them. She had to learn how to show up day after day in environments where burnout wasn't just common, it was expected. But here's what makes Jamila's story so powerful: it's not just what she's accomplished, it's how she's accomplished it. By embracing her whole self, imperfections and all, by prioritizing joy alongside excellence, by refusing to sacrifice her humanity on the altar of achievement. And she's not alone. Let me tell you about Jay Drew, a donor specialist at the milk bank, whose career path defies every piece of conventional wisdom we've ever been given. Jay went from professional ballet to nonprofit development, from the precision and discipline of dance, where every movement had to be perfect, where your body was constantly scrutinized, where one mistake could end your career, to the messy, beautiful, unpredictable work of community organizing and family advocacy. Jay's path wasn't linear. It moved through mathematics, international studies, and ultimately landed in nonprofit leadership. And along the way, Jay discovered something that changed everything. Those creative skills, that empathy, that flexibility required to dance, they could be applied to building partnerships and leading campaigns that uplift families and break down barriers. The very things that made Jay different, that made Jay's journey non traditional, that didn't fit neatly into anyone's expectations, those were actually Jay's greatest strengths. Jay's story teaches us that authenticity isn't about following a prescribed path. It's about honoring your unique journey, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else, even when people question your choices, even when you can't see the destination. It's about trusting that the skills you've developed, the experiences you've lived, the person you've become, all of it has value, even the parts that don't fit neatly into a resume or a LinkedIn profile, even the parts that other people don't understand. And then there's Amy Thornburg, the advancement director at the Milk Bank, whose story is going to break your heart open and then put it back together again. Amy was a solo mother of premature twins. One of her babies needed life saving donor milk. She had to navigate the healthcare system at its most complex, its most intimidating, its most dehumanizing, all while dealing with the terror and exhaustion of having babies in the NICU, all while wondering if her child would survive. But Amy didn't just survive that experience, she transformed it. She used her business skills and her personal story, the story she could have hidden, the story she could have been ashamed of, the story that made her vulnerable, and she turned it into a weapon for change. She advocated for policies that support working families and expand healthcare access. She educated policymakers who had never had to face what she faced. She rallied community support. She helped reduce infant mortality rates. Amy's story is a testament to what happens when we stop hiding our struggles and start using them as fuel for systemic change. When we stop pretending we have it all together and start showing up as our whole, authentic, beautifully imperfect selves. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say: no man will ever be able to validate you, because in God's eyes, you are already certified. You don't need external approval to know your worth. You don't need a perfect performance to deserve rest, joy, and softness. You don't need to earn the right to take care of yourself. Now, let me connect these stories back to Jamilah's central insight. When she talks about embracing bad singing, she's not talking about lowering standards. She's not talking about giving up on growth or settling for mediocrity. She's talking about releasing the stranglehold that perfectionism has on our lives. She's talking about creating space for joy, for play, for the parts of ourselves that don't produce anything measurable but make us feel alive. Think about how this applies to your own life. How many times have you held back from trying something new because you weren't sure you'd be good at it? How many creative impulses have you silenced because you didn't think they were professional enough, polished enough, perfect enough? How many opportunities for joy have you missed because you were too busy proving your worth to everyone around you? How many times have you said yes when your body was screaming no? How many times have you pushed through when what you really needed was to stop? This is the cage that perfectionism builds. And for Black women, especially those of us who've been taught that survival depends on being exceptional, this cage is particularly insidious. We've internalized the message that softness is weakness, that rest is laziness, that saying no is selfishness, that asking for help is failure. We've been conditioned to believe that our value is tied to our productivity, our strength, our ability to carry everyone else's burdens without complaint, without breaking, without even bending. But what if we've had it backwards this whole time? What if true strength isn't about how much you can carry, but about knowing when to put the weight down. What if real leadership isn't about having all the answers, but about being vulnerable enough to admit when you don't? What if the most revolutionary thing you could do isn't to work harder, but to rest deeper? What if the bravest thing you could do today isn't to add one more thing to your plate, but to remove something? What if your soft girl era, your season of rest and recalibration, isn't a detour from your purpose, but the path to it? Jamilah's work at the milk bank embodies this principle every single day. She's part of a team that ensures vulnerable infants receive the nutrition they need to survive and thrive. This work requires precision. It requires attention to detail. It requires unwavering commitment to safety, but it also requires compassion. It requires patience. It requires the ability to hold space for families in crisis, families who are terrified, families who need someone to see them not just as a case number, but as human beings. This work requires the kind of wholeness that only comes when you've learned to integrate all parts of yourself: the professional and the personal, the polished and the imperfect, the strong and the soft. And this brings me to three key insights I need you to take away from this conversation. First, imperfection is powerful. You don't have to be perfect to participate, to create, to lead, to matter, to make a difference. Embracing your flaws isn't a sign of weakness, it's a doorway to growth, to authenticity, to the kind of happiness that doesn't depend on external validation. It's how you become fully human in a world that's trying to turn you into a machine. Second, joy is a legitimate goal, not just a nice to have, not just something you'll get to someday when you've achieved enough, when you've proven enough, when you've sacrificed enough. Joy is a priority right now, today, this moment. Prioritizing enjoyment in your work and creative life isn't self indulgent. It's not frivolous. It's not a luxury. It's how you build resilience. It's how you sustain yourself for the long haul. It's how you model for the next generation that life is meant to be lived, not just endured. Third, validation comes from within. External approval is fleeting, it's conditional, it's never, ever enough. You could achieve everything on your list and still feel empty if you're looking outside yourself for permission to be enough. But when you root your confidence in self acceptance, when you ground your worth in the knowledge that you are already certified, already approved, already enough, that's when you become truly free. That's when you can release the cape. That's when you can set boundaries without guilt. That's when you can embrace the softness that's been waiting for you all along. So here's what I need you to hear: the world doesn't need more perfect people, it needs more whole people. It needs more people who are willing to show up as they are, flaws and all, and do the work that matters. It needs more people who understand that softness isn't the opposite of strength. It's the foundation of it. Your soft girl era isn't about giving up. It's about waking up. It's about recognizing that you've been running on empty for too long, and that the most courageous thing you can do is stop, breathe, and choose yourself. Not out of burnout, but out of reverence. Not because you failed, but because you finally realized that you deserve more than survival. What if the thing you've been calling imperfection is actually your greatest gift? What if the parts of yourself you've been hiding are the very parts the world needs to see? What if your season of rest isn't weakness but wisdom? Here's my challenge to you, and I need you to take this seriously. This week, I want you to identify one area where you've been chasing perfection at the expense of your peace. Maybe it's a project at work where you've been over delivering to prove yourself. Maybe it's a relationship where you've been overextending to keep the peace. Maybe it's a standard you've set for yourself that's impossible to maintain. And I want you to do something radical. I want you to choose authenticity over perfection. I want you to choose joy over validation. I want you to choose yourself. Maybe that means singing off key in the car and loving every second of it. Maybe that means sharing an idea at work that isn't fully formed but could spark something powerful. Maybe that means saying no to a commitment that drains you, even if it disappoints someone else. Maybe it means resting without explanation or apology. Maybe it means admitting you don't have it all together and asking for help. Because Jamila, Jay, and Amy have shown us something profound. When you embrace your whole self, when you prioritize joy alongside excellence, when you root your worth in something deeper than performance, you don't just change your own life, you change the world. One boundary at a time, one act of softness at a time, one moment of authentic, imperfect, beautiful joy at a time. So stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting until you've achieved enough, proven enough, sacrificed enough. The permission you've been waiting for, you already have it. The validation you've been chasing, you already are it. The rest you've been denying yourself, you already deserve it. Your soft girl era is calling, and it's time to answer.